You talked about the things that define our Lutheran identity, that we all sort of agree on certain things. How would you say, well, first of all, how would you define those certain things? And how would you say they do tend to hold us together as we then begin to look at these other issues around some of the issues you just mentioned?
Yeah, it's a great question because that is the question of diversity in unity.
Right, right.
The question of what it means to be in communion. And what we found is probably not surprising, of course, is that to be Lutheran is basically to confess Christ. There are the fundamental, which means to be Christian, in fact, and I think Luther would agree with that, of course. Um, and the reformers. But we found, of course, at the center, what forms that identity is that basic Trinitarian confession. It's the creeds, it's the proclamation of the gospel, the shape of the liturgy, the role of the Bible. There are these basic contours of the Augsburg Confession, word and sacrament. And then across the communion, this affirmation of these foundational kind of theological ideas like justification by grace through faith, an understanding of theology of the cross, priesthood of the baptized, the shape of the liturgy that binds us. Um, and those help sort of identify the tradition. But the way that those traditions are contextualized are highly enculturated. And I think that's why in the document, there was this observation that one of the organizing principles of being Lutheran is about Christian liberty and being free to express it in the diversity of your culture. It's what led Luther to translate the liturgy into German in the first place. So on the one hand, that helps our Lutherans around the world contextualize this good news through their meaningful traditions and practices, and it helps decolonize the tradition in that way and express it in beautiful ways in indigenous communities, both here in North America with Native Americans, but also in Asia, Dalit and tribal people, the Sami people in the Nordics and the Maasai in East Africa, and in these minority communities of Lutherans, around the world also. It's the question of whatever bears Christ that helps us identify each other as Lutherans. But what the document and the study process actually showed was that the main point, whether that was theologically or in terms of spiritual gifts, is that the way we express that diversity is always through the law of love, right? Diversity, we're free to express this faith in diverse ways. But the question is, how do our differences build up the body to reconcile it, not to
Hmm.
divide? So diversity is seen as a gift, not a challenge to our basic unity, which is in Christ.